Hello. Okay, we had a little bit of trouble there, but
Little
we're
technical difficulties.
it's all working okay. So hello and welcome. Today we're going to be covering "Off to Be the Wizard" by Scott Meyers. This is a book that I got to choose because I read this last year in September or so, and then I read it again last week by audiobook, and then I read several chapters to you from the book directly because I really, really enjoyed this book, as you may have guessed by all of what I just said.
Actually, remember you talking about it when you first started to
Do you?
read it. Yeah, I do. You were raving about it. So I'm quite excited that this was our weekly choice. Do you want to give a quick synopsis before we get
Sure.
into the discussion?
I'll try to be quick. I'm quite bad at this. Okay. The basis is there's a guy who is a sort of generic, desk office worker
Martin.
called Martin, and he likes to peruse some nefarious online locales occasionally. And he finds this one file deep in some random company's, database, some massive 5 terabyte text file. And he randomly searches for his name in it because he feels like it and finds himself. And he finds his height in there. And he decides to modify his height to see just because he decides that 5'9" was too short for him. Obviously, he's 6'3".
Well, I mean, basically, he's a hacker who doesn't want to call himself a hacker. He stumbles across this file that actually shows that, through his little investigation, which you've already kind of dipped your toe into, that shows that everyone is actually just an algorithm and life is a simulation, as we all know, as is
Self-evident, really.
Self-evident, really. And so basically, he does what anybody else would do. He kind of starts to fiddle with it and gives himself, inflates his bank account, which actually gets him in trouble. But it's good because Martin has a fail-safe. And what's the fail-safe with Martin when he gets in trouble?
He has a little app on his phone that connects to this file and modifies it directly. And he presses this fail-safe when he starts to get in some trouble with the FBI. And he gets teleported to medieval England.
Because he Googled it, what was the best time period to live in during the medieval ages, and is this time. So
Yeah.
he's teleported to medieval England.
He again gets into some misadventures. He goes to a local village that he finds nearby his teleportation area. And he meets some of the locals and realizes there's already somebody who claims to be a wizard in town because he figures he can set himself to be up as a wizard because he can now edit this file which directly manipulates reality. So he's effectively a wizard, right? It's magic, effectively. But then he realizes there's another wizard there, and they end up getting into a bit of an argument over whether he's a wizard or not, I guess. And they have a bit of combat almost. And Martin loses spectacularly to this local wizard because it turns out this isn't just some random hack. This is actually a guy who also has access to the file and also has had years of experience, whereas Martin has had maybe a week.
So we're left with this story where basically, okay, can I just say what I loved about the story?
Finish synopsis.
Sorry. Well, what I'm going to say about I'm going to say what I loved about the story because it kind of fits into what we were just explaining is that it's this. So there's this file, and all of these wizards in medieval England have gone and they're really just guys who stumbled across this file and also got in trouble for money laundering because,
Because every single one of them ended up editing their bank accounts. And, the US government will generally not care about many things, but they definitely care about taxes. And they definitely care about fraud.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So there's actually quite a whole cabal of wizards, and I say when I say wizard, I mean these
Hackers.
Well, they wouldn't call themselves hackers.
They're not really, are they? They're
just kind of
They're bored, curious people, really. That's about it.
Exactly. So misadventures happen, and it's this wonderful blend of kind of technology and supernatural. And I have to say, for us, because on paper, we don't work. We just are completely different people. No, it's true. I mean, come on, I'm all hippy dippy, and you're all techie, and
what does this have to do with the?
I'm going to let me get to my point. See what I have to deal with. So on paper, we don't work. We have very different interests, and I think this book actually is where our interests kind of bridge together.
For sure.
For sure. Like it has all this cool sorcery and this, this it feels very medieval. It feels very wizardry, but everything that we understand about wizards can be explained
in
logically.
computer code,
Exactly.
yeah. The book does a really good job of that. So the synopsis is that we get to the point where he's now with this wizard in this town, and it's called Lead Church because there's a lead church there made of lead. And after this battle of sorts, the next morning he wakes up, and this other wizard says to him, "Okay, here are your choices. I will either teach you magic and you will learn and pass our trials, or we will send you back to your time and you need to be and you'll be arrested by the FBI for whatever you did."
Hogtied and naked, of course.
Hogtied and naked, yeah. Also, you'll have no access to computers. It will not work. You will not be able to access the file ever again, and you'll pretty much be in prison for the rest of your life. Those are your two choices. So, of course, Martin decides, well, I better do the trials. So over the days, he ends up learning from this other wizard, Philip, and he learns how to do magic. By the way, they've done it. So instead of directly accessing the file via computer, they've set it up so the file is now through a separate shell, is continually monitoring them and looking for them to do certain actions or phrases in order to activate certain powers. So, for example, they have to have sleeves that are 2 feet in
2 centimeters. It's two.
They have to have they're wizards. It's 2 feet, right? Massive sleeves. They're supposed to have massive sleeves. You need to. It's a requirement for wizards. You must have a conical hat, and you must also have a staff and or a wand.
There's a fly.
Oh, okay. I thought you were waving at me. And if you have all these things, and you've had like some security passes, and you know the special phrases, you can use magic. So that way you don't have to continually, program to be a wizard. You can actually just have a staff and cast spells effectively. And that's how they explain the magic system, which is really, you're a wizard, says Graham in the chat, which is actually a really accurate representation of, I think, of how magic could possibly work if we were all a file, which is quite interesting.
Oh, I absolutely love that. That's probably one of my favorite parts about the book is the blend of
sci-fi
explaining, this magic system, explaining, because we all grew up with the stories of King Arthur and the Round Table and Merlin, and I also think it had a lot of interesting things to say about, this kind of, I don't know, like society and magic system. And I don't know, it was a really, really fun read. I'm just so excited to get to the discussion of this. I felt like it was a really fun read, and it was really nice because we've been reading some pretty heavy stuff recently, and Lord have mercy, we did need a little bit of a break after Apt Pupil, didn't we? Yeah,
Apt Pupil was quite a tough read.
Excellent, but a bit tough read. So this one I just kind of blew through. Sorry, you go ahead.
So what happens is...
Oh, sorry, we still on the
start. Yeah.
Okay.
So what happened was Philip teaches Martin how to do magic stuffs. Eventually he gets to his trial. One of their friend group seems to have gone missing. Side note for now. Eventually it becomes interesting. He goes through his trials, which turns out just to be pretty much drinking with a bunch of wizards and doing fun magic in front of them to see if he is cool and fits in and if it doesn't seem to be an ass. For example, if he tries to kill anybody, generally speaking, that's a no-no, and they'll send him back to his own time hog-tied and naked. He passes the trials with flying colours, and we eventually realise the entire village is dead nearby. That's a bit weird. So they decide to investigate. Turns out that the leader of the self-proclaimed leader of the wizards in the medieval England, who is a guy called Jimmy, aka Merlin, turns out he has been trying to create a race of hobbits by modifying the local people in kind of gruesome and horrific ways, and had a lot of mishaps in his experiments, which is incredibly unethical and pretty much Hitler. So... because he's trying to find the perfect race, right? I mean, that's pretty much what it is.
I think, I just finished the book today, so it's a little bit fresher in my mind, but I believe Jimmy's explanation was that, first off, he wanted to create hobbits, orcs, and elves. And his explanation was that, they kind of have this limitless power. And I think what an interesting point in the novel is that they have this limitless power, but it's just regular guys. Like, it's like guys that you went to uni with. It's like it's you. It's just regular dudes, and they have to kind of police themselves. I think it was really realistic in that kind of system. Mm-hmm. But obviously, Jimmy is the self-appointed chairman. He's the obvious villain of the story, and at the end, I like how they. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Have we finished with the plot synopsis? Okay,
No.
Please. Sorry, continue on with the plot synopsis.
She's too excited, which is a good thing. I must have made a good choice with this book. So it turns out that Jimmy was the bad guy, and he's been modifying all these people, which is kind of goes against their only rules of do not modify people without their consent or yourself, right? It's kind of like their only rule. And he's clearly broken that. So they try to confront him, but it turns out he's got lots of plans in place. He removes all their powers. They end up getting attacked. They manage to get out of it with the help of the main character's stupid iPhone app, which gives him the power to fly around and stuff. And it kind of they eventually confront Jimmy, take him down, hog tie him, and send him back to the future, and that's kind of the end of the book, right?
Well, it's kind of open-ended, isn't it, with Jimmy on his... Okay, so the way, yeah.
Yes, of course.
It's open-ended. This is a part of it. This is the first book of a long series. I have to say, I probably won't read the rest of the series. I really enjoyed this book. I think it started out strong. Sorry, I'm going to just go ahead and give my thoughts on the book.
Can we just finish this synopsis?
Yes, of
Okay.
course.
So, it turns out that, Jimmy was the bad guy. We try to exile him, send him back to the future. Martin goes back to his own time to visit his parents at some point. And at the end of the street, there's this old man with a beard who is covered in scabs and scars and a lifetime of abuse. It looks like he went through, for example, the Argentinian or Brazilian judicial system, which is exactly what happened to Jimmy. He got sent back to South America, I believe. Also, if he goes near any electrical vehicles or any electrical devices, they all stop working. So we realize at the end that Jimmy is keeping an eye on Martin and seeing what he's up to, which implies that at the end of his life, Jimmy is still trying to regain his powers because he got sent back to a time, 34 years prior to when Martin was his current time. So he aged 34 years' time, even though it was only a day or so for Martin in his own mind. So we're left with this final note of Jimmy's still around, he's still lurking danger, he's been removed from medieval time and he has no power himself, but there's still some stuff going on, he's clearly trying to seek vengeance. And dun dun dun! Please tell me your views.
Thank you. Well, first impressions of the book, I really enjoyed it. Like I was saying, it started out strong. I think the ending, it kind of dragged for me in the middle, but the ending was quite interesting because it really, you almost come to expect that your expectations are subverted in these kind of novels. Of course, the evil guy isn't going to be the obvious evil guy. It's going to be the mentor, the kindly mentor who has a secret experiment going on in his shop. But it actually was just the evil guy. And I think this book is probably one of the wittiest books I've read in a very long time. I found myself reading it and finding so many passages that I just wanted to write down. Yeah. Or, post to my Instagram.
Yeah, right.
I totally came up with that. And, the only problem I had with the book really was kind of the female representation.
That's understandable.
You could tell that the author was trying. There is one female, kind of lead female character. She's kind of the only female character.
Apart from the mother, yeah. Yeah, she is.
What mother? Oh, yes.
Margarita.
Martin's mother, yes. And the queen is briefly mentioned.
Briefly.
But so basically she's the only notable female character. And I have to say, I appreciate that he didn't force the roommate, because obviously Martin's like, ooh, she's the most attractive girl I've seen in medieval England, and he's trying to gun for her, which every wizard apparently does, except for his mentor Philip, which is probably the reason why Gwen only seems to like Philip, but
which is quite a good thing, actually.
And I liked what the character did, where there was spoilers. Spoiler alert! It turns out that Gwen is a wizard, and you don't really.
Gwen is a tailor that was met in the beginning of the story by Martin, when he first arrived in medieval England, and it just seems to be a tailor for the majority of the story. And we find out at the end that she's in fact a wizard and saves Martin and a few others from disaster at one point.
I have to say, I love that when I found out that reveal, it was so obvious, but I missed it.
It's really satisfying, like isn't it?
It's very satisfying.
It is satisfying.
But you find a lot of books, and this is purely my own opinion, but a lot of books of the kind of geeky, nerdy culture, they're kind of frustrating in that they just think that they're so clever, and they just they do, and it's tedious, and it's exhausting. And this really had the opportunity to be just one of those, books that was done by an independent publisher that thinks it's way cleverer than it actually is. But this time it actually was quite clever, and I really quite enjoyed it. But sorry, what I was going to say about the female representation is Gwen is a wet blanket. She's very boring. She is completely one-dimensional, and she's OP'd, like completely OP'd. And I hate it when they do that to female characters.
Overpowered.
Overpowered. Like, oh, hey, we'll just make you like the most awesome character, but you have no depth.
She does have some depth.
She has no depth.
She does. Well, I mean, like she.
What depth?
She pretends to be a tailor in medieval England because she enjoys being a tailor.
She doesn't want to be burned at the stake as a witch, rightly so, as any woman.
So she stands up for some kind of understanding of women's rights in some respects.
Well, she came from 2024, I think. So of course, women's rights being the way it is today, which is awesome, but it obviously needs to be constantly being improved. I don't know. I just found her to be snoozy, yawn.
She was a bit dull, but I think the reason. Okay. The other major part of the storyline we've kind of missed on is that the female wizards, aka witches or whatever you want to call them, are non-existent in the book. And the reason for that is because they have their own area of Atlantis. They chose to leave. One of the guys in the book sort of pathetically tries to explain this away as maybe they just prefer guys with swimmer's build, yeah. Which is kind of funny, right? It's just a joke, I think, more than anything. And probably just that character's opinion, rather than the author's opinion as to why there's no women in this book.
But it is the only explanation as to why. Oh, because all the hot guys are in Atlantis.
But as somebody who's read the next two books, I can say that the next book is in Atlantis. So there is a lot more women in the next book. I can't say whether it passes the Bechamel test or not. I don't know. I haven't checked. I'm not going to...
I think it's Beckel. The Beckel is...
Okay.
What is the test called? Is something with the B? Chat, let us know.
That's you, Graham.
That's you, Graham.
So I don't know, but I'm not trying to say this is a beacon of feminist righteousness and literature. I don't think it is.
Sorry, we have next week for that.
Next week is that one. Rebecca next week. But this book is just a really interesting take on a new magic system with, instead of it just being generic magic that's kind of unexplained, or even a hard magic system that still relies on some kind of fantasy element. This is like a sci-fi book that is fantasy themed almost, which is really nice because it really gives a unique touch to everything.
And the story's quite basic. It's a basic story, guy, boring white dude finds magical powers and and has a mentor and there's all these kind of like it's very much like it follows the same as any kind of basic fantasy novel, but with this wonderful twist and this very clever witty dialogue and this very clever... I just like how Scott Meyers could take something that's quite done to death. It's absolutely done to death and make it something new and fresh. Do you not agree?
No, I don't agree because most fantasy books tend to be the generic villager boy goes on to greatness because he has a great destiny,
but
right?
What would be the 20th century version?
Sure, this is still an urban version of that, I suppose, to an extent. But the time travel element adds a lot to it. The sci-fi adds a lot to it. And the difference is, unlike every other fantasy book where power levels are usually skewed to the main character being overpowered to an extreme, Martin in this case is literally equal to everybody else in the sense that it's only your creativity and I guess your programming skill that separates you from the rest, your intelligence.
But that's my point.
And he's not the best.
It's this done-to-death story that he was able to take and lift out of mediocrity and make it into something that's refreshing and different and quite delightful.
I think we just disagree on the level because I'm just saying the power levels are different. I think he goes from the equilibrium of everybody being the norm to the equilibrium of everybody he knows being a wizard. That's the only difference. Graham asks, do you think the author is a Martin? Aren't we all Martins?
I think he's a Martin wanting to be a Philip.
I think we're all a Martin.
I don't know. I guess I'm Gwen. No, I want to be Jimmy.
It's concerning.
No, Gary. Oh, which leads me to my next question. If you had to go back to medieval, you are Martin. what kind of wizard would you be?
That's tough. Because we all have our necromancer phase, as the book explains, right? Everybody wants to.
Love that.
Yeah, it's quite funny.
I have to say, I would love to see this as a film or a TV show. I think David Tennant would make an amazing Gary, and I'm not sure who would make a good Martin, but I kept seeing this as a film in my head. Like, it would just be really fun and refreshing and easy to do, I think.
I think so.
Sorry, but what kind of wizard would you be?
I don't know. I think I'd want to go with like.
Would you live in a hut with stew? Would you live in Camelot with the gold-plated thing?
Oh no, I definitely wouldn't do Camelot. No. I'd probably want to go for like the mysterious. Maybe I'd go Tim from Monty Python. My name is
Tim.
Tim.
I love that.
Such a good scene. What about you? What kind of wizard would you be?
Well, I don't think Gwen makes a very good point. Is that I would be burned at the stake the first time I gave my salutation, just immediately. I'd probably be burned at the stake just for, I don't know,
Conforming.
Not conforming. I do like to have the cleavage sometimes, that's another.
Well, she does say that the one thing that she prefers with that century is that everybody all works evenly because everyone needs to survive.
That's true. Yeah, when you're focused on survival, you don't have too much time to bicker about gender. But for me, I would either be a necromancer, but the dead bodies are kind of icky. So probably like some kind of green witch. I don't know. I could see myself living in a hut with lots of cats and lots of cats.
So you wouldn't even be a wizard. You'd just be somebody who has lots of cats.
That was basically what witches were.
Right.
Just crazy ladies who happen to have a lot of cats and talk to themselves.
Here's the quote that you were referring to. I'm going to tell a couple of these quotes because some of these are fantastic. Yeah. So this is one quote from the book, again, Off to Be the Wizard by Scott Meyers. He tried to come up with a word that meant witch, that didn't have any insulting or demeaning overtones. He couldn't. In fact, after some thought, he couldn't think of a word that meant female, that men hadn't imbued with some belittling shade of meaning. Finally, after a much longer silence than he had intended, he simply stated, "I can understand why," in reference to Gwen not showing herself as a witch.
And that right there is why Scott totally gets a pass with me for having only one female character.
Yeah, I think he does a good job of showing that there is a level of insight here.
It's self-aware. It's a very self-aware book, but it toes the line of being obnoxious, but it doesn't ever cross the line for me anyway.
Yeah. I've got a couple other quotes if you don't mind.
Oh, absolutely, please.
I'll try not to do the ones that are particularly atheist because I was interested in those. Here's a good one. It's amazing how quickly we get used to weirdness when it's our own weirdness.
That's so true.
And it's pretty good. I mean, like, you're talking about these guys who lived in a cave eating burritos out of their hats that they conjured, right? And
sorry, we have to talk about the burrito thing and how
I've got that quote coming.
Okay, because
as
soon as I read it, I was like, oh my gosh, because if you know Ken and chat/Graham, you probably do. He is a man of simple pleasures, and lately it's been we have wraps.
I live on burritos.
He lives on burrito wraps, just and it's an all-encompassing.
I mean, no matter what food we have, I can put in a wrap. Like a dessert, main meal, breakfast cereal, it can go in a wrap.
It's true. Yeah, technically that is true. Do you have the burrito quote? Because I really would.
No, I don't have the actual quote. I'm afraid. No.
But I basically, when I was reading it, it was very hard for me not to put you in the place of Martin for some of it.
Thank you.
/Philip.
Yes, that's better. Let's a couple more quotes here. They couldn't prove themselves right, so they channeled their energies into proving the other side wrong. I think with the current presidential election, that's just so... Oh,
that's politics.
It just tastes so good.
Chef's kiss.
Isn't that perfect?
Yeah.
It's just such a good quote.
Yeah.
I mean, and you see that a lot with people who try to argue. They try, instead of trying to arguing their point as being correct, they try to show how the other person is...
Strawman.
Yeah, it's strawmanning, absolutely. Or just trying to show shade at the other person. Here's another one, the one that we were talking about before. Sure, as a teenager, he'd experimented with the whole pose, but found that rebelling against everything all the time was just too exhausting.
It is, yes.
And I think it's pretty funny as well, and a good view on life. And this was in reference to the fact that Philip came from the 80s.
Yes.
So he had a Commodore 64 that which he programmed on, and he found the file that allows you to edit all of reality through his Commodore 64. Whereas Martin accessed it through his modern day computer, 2014 or whatever. So they're talking about this new laptop that Martin brought back to the medieval ages to show Philip. And Philip shook his head. I understand all of these specs, but the numbers are all so large. I don't know what any of it means. What on earth can a person do with 4 gigabytes of RAM? Upgrade it immediately, Martin answered. Go lie down. Go lie down.
Our bookworms have escaped the library. Go lie down.
Our dogs are lying at our feet because they need to be nearby us. Sorry for the shaking and the audio rumbles.
Please don't rip down our entire setup. Oh, Kenneth.
Oh, God. One of our dogs is lying precariously over the cable for the camera, so...
Well, this is exciting, guys.
Yeah. You're going to be in trouble. Lie down. Be a good boy. Good boy. God forbid we spend 25 minutes talking without talking to them. Our lighting is being maneuvered. Let's wrap this up quickly.
Okay.
A couple other quotes. The day we stop learning is the day we stop living. I thought that was a very inspirational quote.
That's a very good one.
Yeah. That one really hit me quite well.
Maybe one more?
One more. This is also a very good one. He drove to work, his car a sunny little island of calm in the middle of a swollen river of misery that was the morning commute.
This is after he's discovered the file.
Yes. He's realised that his daily drudge is just something he doesn't need to do anymore, and this is shortly before he gets the FBI interested in ruining his life. This is a comment from Graham. That's the one thing you can keep on eating without getting full. It's exactly true. Burritos.
I think that's actually burritos are magic. It's just,
So, overall, what are your thoughts on the book?
Excellent. Not my favorite. I think that there was some times where it was just a bit too self-aware for me and it's just a bit too geeky, but I think I enjoyed it so much because it surprised me. And our light is about to...
It's this close to falling off the table. Keep talking.
I really enjoyed it, and I think that I enjoyed it a lot because it just felt very much like you.
Oh, that's sweet. I enjoyed the book. The humor I thought was just down my alley. I enjoyed the fact that it was such a light read. It was very Moorish. I kept whenever I stopped reading it, I wanted to get back to and the fact that I've read this twice and I see myself reading it again in the future says a lot. I find the magic system to be particularly of interest. Magic systems in general are quite hard to come up with something that's new and interesting, and because I think in recent years, you read things like The Eye of the World, the Lightbringer series, and you read Harry Potter and everything, and once you've read all those, you feel like you've pretty much cracked most of the magic systems, and Avatar as well, I guess, with elements. And that feels like most magic systems. This came along, shook my world. Completely new magic system. Never seen anything like that before. Really impressed. Really enjoyed that.
If I could just piggyback on one of you, and you saying it's Moorish, absolutely. I would say to myself, okay, I'm only going to read one chapter, and then 5 chapters later, I was like, okay, I need to feed myself and to bathe myself.
Yeah.
So I love it when a book can do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But next week, I'm very excited. So this was your week, and then next week is my week, and we're going to be reading Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca, which is an excellent gothic romantic thriller. Graham, I hope you enjoy it. It's very good. Give it, and if once you're done reading it, I would highly suggest that you go and watch the Hitchcock film, because that is probably one of the best films ever made, and that's not just my opinion.
Okay, so I've not read that one yet. I'll read that one shortly. We've got a few other books lined up for the rest of the year, actually, pretty much. We'll start posting that on our Goodreads discussion board. Please be sure to check that out. Also, be sure to check out our audiobook link up here. Type that in, and you can get a free audiobook on US Audible, and that's very much appreciated if you do that, because we get a very small kickback. Final thoughts on the book. I just wanted to talk about the differences of the novel to the audiobook.
Oh, yes, sorry, we totally forgot that segment. I love that segment. Well, I like the book. For me, when I'm reading the book, it's more, I'm able to kind of make it into more of a cohesive kind of movie in my head and cast it and have the voices all myself. So this is a very imaginative book. It was a very fertile ground to do that on, so I really enjoyed reading it, the actual physical book. But you seem to enjoy the audiobook.
Well, I've read the audiobook twice, and I've read some of this book that we have here as well, because I read some of it to Hidden Features.
That was nice. He did the voices.
Which I did the voices that I pretty much trying to copy what I heard in the audiobook, right? And it was interesting because I realized that a lot of the stuff that I heard in the audiobook, I kind of glazed over some of it. For example, the description of Jimmy's palace, effectively. The descriptions of the gold inlaid structures and such. I kind of glossed over that because I thought, like, okay, it's fancy. That's pretty much what I read. You know, I'd hear like a minute of speaking and I'd be like, okay, it's still fancy. It's still fancy. All right, got it. It's fancy. Like, I don't know. Like, I didn't feel like it was constructive to the story. But I guess that's the one thing you get from reading a book directly and not reading an audiobook while distracting yourself with something else, is that you can really pay attention to the subtle details. And it does definitely add a bit more of an atmosphere to the book, which I did enjoy. And I think that's more of a commentary on audiobook versus book in general. The narration was fantastic in the audiobook. Really good. I think it added to the comedy element drastically because having spoken to several authors who have, you know, have hired narrators to narrate their books, there's usually there's a very important relationship between the author and the actor to make sure they do it properly. And quite often the narrator will actually speak to the author and say, what do you think about this voice? Should I say it like this or should I say it like that? Is this part more of a joke or more sarcastic? And usually there's a lot of back and forth. So it's not as if, and you know, some books that's not the case because some books are narrated after the author has passed away or whatever. But in this case, it sounds to me like they had a good communication because I feel like they really passed on the message of the book's comedy to the narrator, and he did a good job of acting that out.
So audiobooks are kind of like watching a DVD with the director's commentary on, where
it feels like that.
It's like one level above, where rather than just watching.
You lose some of the content in the sense that you don't pay as much attention to the subtle details. At least for me personally, like I don't pay as much attention to the descriptions of the environment. But the voice acting for the people, the narration of the actual people, is more enveloping, so you get more out of that than you would, I think, from the book. It's hard, for example, sarcasm, right? You can't get sarcasm from text easily. You can't. That's just factual, right? You can't. Generally speaking, statistically, you can't.
I think if it's well written enough, I definitely picked up on the sarcasm.
Sure, but I imagine so there's sometimes where you don't, and even if it's subtle sarcasm, for example, right? Yeah. The human tone is very there's a huge variety of tonality that is its own language in itself. I mean, if you spoke monotonously to somebody, you can tell the difference, right? Can you show off the book on cam? Yeah, absolutely. We can certainly try. Off to Be the Wizard. Woo! By Scott Meyer. There we go. Why did you want me to do that? I'm curious. A regular guy travels back in time to King Arthur's court after hacking reality.
That's an
what
excellent,
could possibly go wrong?
That's an excellent synopsis. Look at that.
You're equally bad at synopses. Thank you very much. So what's your final rating? Out of 10. Out
of 10, I'd give it a 7. Yeah.
I'd probably give it an 8. I enjoyed this quite a lot, and the fact that it's so rereadable is very unique for me. And like I said, the humor was fantastic, the unique magic system, etc. Loved it.
I was just happy to have a wee, fun, light, gentle read, and I found it to be surprising. I think that's why I rated it so high, as I was like, I do not want to read this. I don't want to read this. This seems like utter. There's
a funny thing when you get married. There's this funny thing, and in any relationship, I suppose, as well, where if one person suggests something to you, you assume that you're not going to like it for whatever reason.
Because you've seen that person at their worst, pooping with the door open and stuff. I'm not taking any of your suggestions.
I don't know about that, but there's I don't know. It's just that you're aware of each other's tastes and you know that yours are different, and you know that very well. You know that your tastes are very different.
Especially for us, we're two sides of.
We're very different in our tastes, what we enjoy. So the fact that it's really nice. This show's actually great for the opportunity to be able to share things with each other and share our interests and our genres. And I look forward to reading Rebecca next week, and I hope I do enjoy it. I expect not to, though.
I expect that you might not enjoy it, but you will see it for the actual literary masterpiece that it is.
Yeah,
because it is.
I'm sure of it.
It absolutely is.
Graham said, nice looking book and artwork. Wasn't sure if it was a hard book or paperback. It's actually quite nice.
Yeah. So this will be going on to our shelf of books that we're reading. We're trying to kind of keep
padding
them
out.
here. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, eventually we can probably just replace the bookcase and have piles of books here, to be honest. A bit like back here where we have all these piles.
Yes, I hope to have this. This is going to be a room in our house someday.
That would be nice.
That would be nice.
You have been watching off... no, that's not the name of the show. That's the name
You've been watching Off to the Wizard?
Yeah,
Words
you've been
are
watching.
hard.
You've been watching and listening to...
where my prose
where
at?
my
Where my
prose
prose at? My lord.
She's holding the wine, but I've already drank mine. And we are on every single Wednesday at 6 p.m. EST, 11 p.m. GMT. Thank you very much for tuning in. You can find us all over the web. We are on twitter.com/VTWShowX, twitter.com/drkenreed. And you don't care to do yours?
Oh, no, I don't care to do mine. I am a mysterious presence online. But I want to say my salutation.
We're not done yet.
Okay,
We're not
I'd like to say my
yet.
salutation.
Okay, well, say that to the end. Yeah, say that to the end. We've got a social media thing to do. Click on that Audible link up here. We very much appreciate that. You can find us on Facebook.com, search for Show Space X. You'll find us up there. On Instagram.com, you can go to VTW Show X. You can also find the app, of course, and you'll find us there. We do our updates there every week for what book we'll be reading next. So if you don't follow us on Goodreads, which you should do, because that's the best place, if you want to link to our Goodreads, you can find it on Twitter. You can also find it on our Reddit. Speaking of which, you can go to reddit.com/r/showx. Be sure to subscribe there because every week we do update with what we'll be reading next, and the previous show goes in there as well. As well, of course, be sure to check out ShowX every single Sunday at 2 p.m. EST, 7 p.m. GMT for our other show on tech, gaming, and more. It's kind of X is whatever you want it to be.
The X Factor.
But really what I want it to be. It's pretty much not books because that's what we do here, right? That's pretty much why the ShowX is. Okay, your salutation.
Oh, dang it, I forgot it. Thank you for being here. You could be anywhere in the world and you're here, so thank you very much.
Wow.
I built that up.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Good night.
Yeah, good night. Thanks for tuning in. Bye. Bye, Graham.
Bye, Graham.